The following compilation features unsettling and spine-chilling tales sourced from Reddit's horror communities. Reader discretion is strongly advised. These narratives may contain graphic descriptions, psychological distress, and themes that could unsettle sensitive individuals. Proceed with caution, as immersion into these eerie stories may provoke fear, unease, and sleep disturbances. Enter this realm of Reddit's creepy horror stories at your own risk, as the line between reality and the macabre may blur within these chilling narratives. I never thought I'd be the guy to write one of these posts, but here I am, fingers trembling as they hover over my keyboard. I need to get this off my chest, and maybe someone out there can help me make sense of what the hell happened. But before I dive into the nightmare my life has become, let me introduce myself. My name's Jake, and I'm your average 28-year-old guy trying to make it in the big city. I work as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm, spending my days hunched over a computer, tweaking layouts and debating the merits of serif versus sans serif font. It's not the most exciting job in the world, but it pays the bills and leaves me enough free time to pursue my real passion, photography. I'm not what you'd call conventionally handsome. I've got this mop of unruly brown hair that never seems to behave, no matter how much product I use. My eyes are a muddy hazel, nothing special, hidden behind thick-rimmed glasses that I've been told make me look adorkable, whatever that means. I'm average height, with a bit of a dad bod from too many late-night snacking while working on projects, but I've got a decent smile, or so I've been told, and I can usually make people laugh. My apartment is a tiny studio in the heart of downtown. It's cramped, with barely enough room for my bed, desk, and the small kitchen area. The walls are plastered with my photographs, moody black and white shots of the city at night, close-ups of raindrops on leaves, that sort of thing. It's not much, but it's home. My love life, well, that's been a bit of a disaster. I've had a few relationships over the years, but nothing that really stuck. My last girlfriend, Sarah, dumped me 6 months ago because she said I was too absorbed in my work. Maybe she was right. I do tend to get lost in my projects, sometimes forgetting to eat or sleep when I'm in the zone. After Sarah left, I threw myself into my work even more. I picked up extra freelance gigs, stayed late at the office, anything to keep my mind off the loneliness that crept in during the quiet hours of the night. But eventually, even I had to admit that I needed to get back out there. That's when I decided to give Tinder a shot. I'd always been skeptical of dating apps, but a couple of my co-workers had good experiences with it, so I figured, why not? I spent an embarrassingly long time choosing photos for my profile. Should I go with the serious, artsy black and white portrait, the goofy snapjack from my best friend's wedding? In the end, I settled on a mix, a couple of casual shots, one of me with my camera, and yes, the adorkable one with the glasses. For the first few weeks, it was pretty uneventful. A few matches here and there, some conversations that fizzled out after a day or two. I was about ready to give up on the whole thing when I matched with her. Lily. Lily's profile was different. Most girls on Tinder have the usual pics, beach shots, gym selfies, that kind of thing. But Lily's pics were artsy as fuck. Black and white portraits where she was always looking slightly off camera, like she was distracted by something just out of frame. It was intriguing. I'll give her that. We matched on a Tuesday night, and she messaged me first. Lily, hey there, handsome. Wid. I was sitting at my desk, editing some photos from a recent shoot, when my phone buzzed with the notification. I picked it up, my heart doing a little flip when I saw her name. Me, I'm just chillin', editing some pics. HBO? Lily, same. Bored though. Wanna change that? Now, I'm not gonna lie. My first thought was, holy shit, I'm gonna get laid tonight. But I didn't want to come on too strong and scare her off. So I played it cool. Me, haha, maybe. What did you have in mind? Lily, IDK. You tell me. I'm down for anything. Me, how about we grab a drink first? Get to know each other a bit. Lily, sounds good. When and where? We agreed to meet at this little dive bar downtown the next night. I was pumped, but also a bit nervous. I mean, she seemed almost too eager, but I figured, what's the worst that could happen? The next day at work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to Lily's profile pics, those haunting eyes that seemed to look right through me. My boss, Dave, had to snap his fingers in front of my face more than once to get my attention. Earth to Jake, he said, a hint of annoyance in his voice. You with us, buddy? Yeah, sorry, I mumbled, forcing my eyes back to my computer screen. Just a little distracted today. Dave's expression softened. Hot date tonight? I felt my cheeks flush. Maybe. We'll see. He clapped me on the shoulder. Good for you, man. Just don't forget about the Johnson account deadline tomorrow. All right? I nodded, promising myself I'd stay late to finish up if I had to. No way was I going to let this date mess up my work. The rest of the day crawled by. I must have changed my outfit 5 times before leaving my apartment, finally settling on a simple black button-down and my nicest jeans. As I locked my door, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. My hair was doing that thing again, sticking up in all directions. I tried to smooth it down, gave up, and headed out. I got to the bar about 15 minutes early. It was a place called the Rusty Nail, a hole-in-the-wall joint with dim lighting and a jukebox that hadn't been updated since the 90s. I liked it because it was never too crowded, and they made a mean old-fashioned. As I nursed my first drink, I felt a tap on my shoulder. Hey there, handsome. I turned around, and there she was, Lily. And let me tell you, her profile pics didn't do her justice. She had this long, dark hair that seemed to move even when she was standing still. And her eyes, man, her eyes were something else. Deep green, almost hypnotic. Hi, I managed to stammer out. Lily, right? She smiled, and I swear the whole bar got a little brighter. That's me, and you must be Jake. Nice to finally meet you in person. We grabbed a table and started chatting. The conversation flowed easily, like we'd known each other for years. We talked about our jobs. She was a freelance photographer, which instantly piqued my interest. Our hobbies, we both loved horror movies, and our families. She was an only child, like me. As the night went on, I couldn't shake this feeling that something was off, not in a bad way, necessarily. It was more like when you're watching a movie and you can tell there's a jump scare coming, but you don't know exactly when. At one point, Lily excused herself to go to the bathroom. While she was gone, I checked my phone and saw a message from her. Lily, having a great time. Can't wait to see where this goes. I looked up, confused. She'd left her phone on the table. How did she... Before I could think too much about it, she was back, sliding into the seat across from me with that same mesmerizing smile. Everything okay? She asked, tilting her head slightly. Yeah, I thought I got a message from you, but your phone's right here. She laughed, a sound like tinkling bells. Oh, that's weird. Must be a glitch or something. I nodded, pushing the thought out of my mind. We ordered another round of drinks, and as the night wore on, I found myself more and more drawn to her. There was something about Lily that was just captivating. Around midnight, the bar started to clear out. Lily leaned in close, her breath warm against my ear. Want to get out of here? My heart raced. This was it. But again, that nagging voice in the back of my head told me to take it slow. How about we call it a night? I suggested. Maybe we could do dinner tomorrow. For a split second, I swear I saw a flash of something in her eyes. Disappointment, anger. But it was gone so fast I thought I must have imagined it. Sure, she said, her smile never wavering. Dinner sounds great. We said our goodbyes outside the bar, As I turned to leave, Lily grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Jake," she said, her voice low. "I had a really great time tonight. I can't wait to see you again." "Me too," I replied, trying to ignore the goosebumps that had suddenly appeared on my arm. As I walked home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just stepped into something I didn't fully understand. But I was excited, intrigued, and maybe a little scared. Little did I know, that fear was about to become all too real. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a mouth that felt like it was stuffed with cotton. I groaned, reaching for my phone on the nightstand. The bright screen made me wince as I checked the time, 10:37 a.m. Shit, I was late for work. As I scrambled out of bed, my phone buzzed with a string of notifications, all from Lily. "Lily, morning handsome." "Lily, can't stop thinking about last night." "Lily, can't wait to see you again." "Lily, dinner tonight." "Lily, Jake." "Lily, you there?" "Lily, hello?" "Lily, why are you ignoring me?" I checked the timestamps. The first message was sent at 3:17 a.m., barely an hour after we'd said goodbye. The last one was from just a few minutes ago. I rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling in my gut. This was a lot. "Me, morning Lily. Sorry, I just woke up. Late for work. Dinner sounds great. Where do you want to go?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Lily, my place. He'll cook." I hesitated. Going to her place on the second date, it seemed a bit fast. But then again, hadn't I been hoping for exactly this kind of opportunity? "Me, sure. Sounds good. What time?" "Lily, 7. We'll send her the address. Can't wait." I quickly shot off a text to Dave, my boss, apologizing for being late and promising to stay extra to make up for it. Then I rushed through my morning routine, barely tasting the stale coffee I gulped down before heading out the door. The day at work was a blur. I couldn't focus on anything, my mind constantly drifting back to Lily. There was something about her that I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was like she had this gravitational pull, drawing me in even when we weren't together. "Earth to Jake." Dave's voice cut through my thoughts. I looked up to see him standing over my desk, arms crossed. "You okay, buddy? You've been staring at that same layout for the past hour." I felt my face flush. "Yeah, sorry. Just got a lot on my mind." Dave's expression softened. "That hot date go well last night?" "Yeah." I nodded, a small smile tugging at my lips. "We're actually seeing each other again tonight." "Good for you," Dave grinned, clapping me on the shoulder. "Just try to keep your head in the game while you're here, all right?" I promised I would, but it was easier said than done. As the day wore on, my phone kept buzzing with messages from Lily. Random thoughts, jokes, even a few. Suggestive photos that made me glad I wasn't sitting in an open office. At 6:30, I headed out to Lily's place. She lived in an old Victorian house on the outskirts of town, the kind of place that probably looked charming in daylight, but took on a sinister air in the growing dusk. As I walked up the creaky steps to her front door, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I turned around, scanning the street, but it was empty. I raised my hand to knock, but before my knuckles could touch the wood, the door swung open. Lily stood there, backlit by a warm glow from inside the house. She was wearing a flowing red dress that hugged her curves in all the right places, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. "Jake," she breathed, her green eyes seeming to glow in the dim light. "I'm so glad you're here." She pulled me inside, the door closing behind me with a soft thud that sounded strangely final. The interior of the house was not what I expected. While the outside looked like it hadn't been updated since the Victorian era, the inside was sleek and modern, minimalist furniture, abstract art on the walls, and what looked like state-of-the-art tech scattered around. "Wow," I said, taking it all in. "Nice place." Lily smiled, leading me towards what I assumed was the kitchen. "Thanks. I like to keep people guessing." The smell of something delicious wafted through the air, making my stomach growl. "Whatever you're cooking smells amazing," I said. "Oh, that's just a little something I whipped up," Lily replied, a coy smile playing on her lips. "I hope you like it. Spicy." We sat down to eat, and I had to admit, the food was incredible. Some kind of exotic dish I couldn't quite place, with flavors that danced on my tongue. As we ate, we talked and laughed, the wine flowing freely. I found myself relaxing, the unease from earlier melting away under Lily's warm gaze. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Lily put on some music, something low and thrumming that seemed to vibrate in my chest. As we Saturday on the couch, she moved closer, her hand resting on my thigh. "I'm really glad you came over tonight, Jake," she said, her voice low and husky. I swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how close she was. "Me too," I managed to say. She leaned in, her lips brushing against mine. The kiss was electric, sending shockwaves through my body. I pulled her closer, losing myself in the moment. But then, something strange happened. As we kissed, I felt different, lightheaded, but not in the usual way. The room seemed to spin, colors blurring and shifting. I pulled back, blinking hard. "Are you okay?" Lily asked, concern etched on her face. "Yeah, I shook my head, trying to clear it. "I feel a little weird." "Oh no," Lily said, her hand cool against my forehead. "Maybe you're coming down with something. Why don't you lie down for a bit?" I nodded, letting her guide me to what I assumed was a guest bedroom. The room swam in and out of focus as I collapsed onto the bed. Lily's face hovered above me, her green eyes seeming to glow in the darkness. "Just rest," she whispered, her voice sounding far away. "I'll take care of you." As I drifted off, I could have sworn I saw something shift in Lily's face, like a ripple passing over water. But before I could process what I'd seen, darkness claimed me. I don't know how long I was out. When I came to, the room was pitch black. I blinked, trying to orient myself. Where was I? What happened? As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I realized something was off. The room felt different, smaller, somehow, and there was a smell, musty and damp, like a basement that hadn't been aired out in years. I reached out, feeling for a lamp or a light switch, but my hand hit something solid, wood, rough and splintery. I ran my hand along it, my heart beginning to race as I realized what it was. I was in a box, a fucking box. Panic surged through me. I pushed against the wood, but it didn't budge. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. And then I heard it, a soft scratching sound coming from above me. It grew louder, more frantic. Whatever was up there, it was trying to get in. Or maybe it was trying to get out. I don't know how long I was trapped in that box. Minutes, hours. Time seemed to lose all meaning in the suffocating darkness. The scratching sound above me had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow even worse. Just as I was about to give in to full-blown panic, I heard a click. A sliver of light appeared, growing wider as the lid of the box was slowly lifted. I squinted against the sudden brightness, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. And there she was, Lily, peering down at me with those hypnotic green eyes. But something was different, wrong. Her face seemed to shift and ripple, like I was looking at her through a heat haze. "Oh, good. You're awake," she said, her voice oddly distorted. "I was worried I might have given you too much." "Well, what?" I croaked, my throat dry and scratchy. "What's going on? Why am I in a box?" Lily tilted her head, a gesture that should have been cute, but now seemed alien and predatory. "Don't you like it? I made it just for you." She reached down, grabbing my arm with that surprisingly strong grip, and hauled me out of the box. As I stumbled to my feet, I realized we were in some kind of basement. The walls were bare concrete, covered in strange symbols that seemed to writhe and twist when I wasn't looking directly at them. "What is this place?" I asked, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. "What did you do to me?" Lily's smile widened, revealing teeth that looked just a bit too sharp. "I didn't do anything to you, Jake. I'm just helping you see things as they really are." She gestured around the room, and I noticed for the first time that we weren't alone. Shadows moved in the corners, taking on vaguely humanoid shapes before melting back into darkness. And on the far wall, I felt the blood drain from my face. Dozens of Polaroid photos were tacked to the wall, each showing a different man. Some were smiling, obviously taken on dates. Others looked terrified, their eyes wide with fear. And some were just empty-eyed husks, staring blankly at the camera. "Do you like my collection?" Lily asked, her voice filled with pride. "You'll be joining them soon." I backed away, my legs shaky. "What the fuck are you?" Lily laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally in the basement. "Oh, Jake, I'm whatever you want me to be. Isn't that what all men want? A girl who's down for anything?" As she spoke, her form began to change. One moment she was the beautiful woman I'd met at the bar. The next she was a writhing mass of shadows and teeth. I blinked hard, convinced I must be hallucinating, but the transformations continued. "This isn't real," I muttered, squeezing my eyes shut. "This can't be real." I felt a cold hand on my cheek, forcing me to open my eyes. Lily was inches from my face, her green eyes now swirling pools of darkness. "It's very real, Jake," she whispered, "and it's only just beginning." Suddenly, the room began to spin. The concrete walls melted away, replaced by swirling vortexes of color and shadow. I felt like I was falling, tumbling through space and time. When the world finally stopped moving, I found myself back in my apartment. I was lying on my bed, fully clothed, my alarm blaring next to me. With a shaking hand, I reached out and shut it off. 6:30 a.m., Tuesday morning, the day after I'd first matched with Lily on Tinder. Had it all been a dream, some kind of stress-induced hallucination? I grabbed my phone, my heart racing as I opened Tinder. There she was, our match still at the top of my list. But our conversation, it was gone, as if we'd never spoken. Relief washed over me. It had just been a nightmare. A vivid, terrifying nightmare, but nothing more. I let out a shaky laugh, running a hand through my hair. That's when I noticed it, a small red mark on my wrist, right where Lily had grabbed me in the bar. In the dream, as I stared at the mark, my phone buzzed with a new message from Lily. "Lily, morning handsome. Ready for round 2? I dropped the phone like it was on fire, scrambling out of bed. This couldn't be happening. It wasn't possible. But as I moved, I felt something in my pocket. Frowning, I reached in and pulled out a Polaroid photo. My blood ran cold as I looked at it. It was me, sleeping in that box in the basement, and in the corner of the photo, just barely visible, was a pair of glowing green eyes. I sank to the floor, my back against the bed, as the reality of the situation crashed over me. This wasn't over. It was far from over. And Lily, whatever she was coming for me again. My phone kept buzzing with messages, but I couldn't bring myself to look at them. Instead, I sat there, staring at the photo, trying to make sense of what was happening to me. That's when I heard it, a soft scratching sound, coming from inside my closet, the same sound I'd heard in the box. Slowly, trembling, I turned my head towards the closet door, and as I watched, paralyzed with fear, the handle began to turn. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched the closet door slowly creak open. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body refused to move. I was frouncing, a deer in headlights, as the darkness within the closet seemed to pulse and breathe. A pale hand emerged from the shadows, its fingers unnaturally long and tipped with sharp, black nails. It gripped the edge of the door, and I heard the wood splinter under its strength. "Jake," Lily's voice echoed from within the closet, distorted and unnatural. "Don't you want to play?" That broke my paralysis. I scrambled to my feet, nearly tripping over myself as I bolted for the apartment door. I could hear something moving behind me, a sound like 1,000 insects skittering across the floor. I made it to the living room before I felt something wrap around my ankle. I went down hard, my chin cracking against the hardwood floor. Stars exploded in my vision as I rolled onto my back, kicking frantically at whatever had grabbed me. It was Lily, or what used to be Lily. Her body was twisted and elongated, more shadow than substance. Her face was a constantly shifting mask of features, only those piercing green eyes remaining constant. "Why are you running, Jake?" she asked, her voice coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I thought you wanted this. You swiped right. After all." I managed to break free of her grip and scrambled backward until my back hit the wall. "What are you?" I gasped out. Lily's form solidified slightly, taking on a more human appearance, though still wrong in ways I couldn't quite define. She tilted her head, that predatory smile back on her face. "I'm whatever you desire most, Jake," she said, her voice a seductive purr. "Isn't that what Tinder is all about? Finding your perfect match?" She took a step towards me, and I pressed myself harder against the wall, wishing I could phase through it. But I don't. I never wanted this. Lily laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Oh, but you did, all those lonely nights, swiping endlessly, hoping for a connection. You were calling out to something, Jake," and I answered. As she spoke, the room around us began to change. The walls melted away, replaced by an endless void filled with swirling colors and shapes. I could see other figures in the distance, trapped in bubbles of reality. With a jolt, I realized they were the men from the Polaroids in the basement. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Lily spread her arms wide, her form shifting and twisting. "This is my domain, Jake, a place between realities, where desires and nightmares become one." She leaned in close, her breath cold against my ear. "And now, you're a part of it." I felt something inside me snap. Maybe it was the fear, or the adrenaline, or just the sheer impossibility of the situation. But suddenly, I was angry, furious at being toyed with, at being trapped in this nightmare. "No," I growled, pushing her away with a strength I didn't know I possessed. "I'm not playing your game anymore." Lily's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed dangerously. "You don't have a choice. Jake, you're mine now." She lunged at me, her form shifting into something monstrous, all teeth and claws. But this time, I was ready. I ducked under her attack and ran, not towards any specific destination, but simply away from her. The void around us churned and twisted, reality bending in impossible ways. I could hear Lily behind me, her inhuman shrieks echoing through the nothingness. But I kept running, my feet somehow finding purchase on nothing at all. As I ran, I saw flashes of my life, my apartment, the office, the rusty nail bar, but they were distorted, twisted versions of reality. In each scene, I saw myself, but not quite right. Versions of me that had made different choices, taken different paths. And in each one, Lily was there, watching, waiting. I realized then what she truly was, not just a monster, but a parasite, feeding on the loneliness and desperation of people like me. She was the embodiment of every bad decision, every moment of weakness. But I wasn't weak, not anymore. I skidded to a stop, turning to face her. Lily was right behind me, her form a writhing mass of shadows and hate. "Enough," I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "I'm done being your puppet." Lily snarled, lunging at me once more. But this time, as her claws reached for me, I stood my ground. I thought of my life, my friends, my family, all the real connections I had, not the false promise of a perfect match. "You have no power over me," I said, and I believed it. There was a sound like reality itself was tearing apart. Lily screamed, her form dissolving into motes of light. The void around us shattered like glass, and I was falling. I jolted awake with a gasp, sitting bolt upright in my bed. Sunlight streamed through my window, and I could hear the familiar sounds of the city outside. For a long moment, I just sat there, my heart racing, trying to process what had happened. Had it all been a dream, some kind of shared hallucination? I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking slightly. There was Tinder, still installed. With a deep breath, I opened it. My match with Lily was gone. In fact, her profile had disappeared entirely, as if she had never existed. Relief washed over me, so intense I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. It was over. Whatever Lily was, whatever had happened, it was done. As I set my phone down, I noticed something on my wrist. The red mark where Lily had grabbed me was still there, but it was fading even as I watched. Soon, it would be gone, the last tangible proof of my nightmare. I got out of bed on shaky legs and made my way to the bathroom. As I splashed water on my face, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked different, older, somehow, like I'd lived a lifetime in the space of a night. But I also saw strength there, a resolve I hadn't had before. I picked up my phone again, my finger hovering over the Tinder icon. With a deep breath, I pressed down, holding it until the app began to wiggle. Then I hit the little X, watching as it disappeared from my screen. No more games, no more swiping. It was time to make real connections, in the real world. As I got ready for work, I felt lighter somehow, free. But I couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere, in some twisted corner of reality, Lily was still out there, waiting for the next lonely soul to swipe right. It's been 3 months since my encounter with Lily, and I still wake up some nights in a cold sweat, the echo of her laughter ringing in my ears. The rational part of my brain wants to dismiss it all as a vivid nightmare, a product of stress and loneliness, but I know better. The memory of those green eyes, shifting and swirling with otherworldly malice, is too real to be a mere figment of my imagination. I've tried to move on, to return to some semblance of normalcy. I threw myself into my work, churning out designs with a fervor that both impressed and worried my boss, Dave. He pulled me aside one day, concern etched on his face. "Jake, buddy," he said, his hand on my shoulder. "You've been putting in a lot of hours lately. Everything okay?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just trying to stay busy. You know." He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push it. "All right. Well, don't burn yourself out." "Okay." But the truth is, I'm terrified of being idle. Because when I'm not working, when my mind has a chance to wander, that's when the doubts creep in. That's when I start seeing shadows move in the corner of my eye, or catch a glimpse of flowing dark hair disappearing around a corner. I've stopped using dating apps altogether. The very thought of swiping through profiles makes my stomach churn. Instead, I've been trying to meet people the old-fashioned way. I joined a local photography club, started attending gallery openings, even signed up for a cooking class. Anything to make real, tangible connections with actual people. But it's not easy. Every time I meet someone new, I can't help but scrutinize them, looking for any sign that they might not be who they claim to be. Are their eyes a little too bright? Their smile a little too perfect? It's exhausting, this constant vigilance, but I can't seem to shake it. About a month after the incident, I broke down and went to see a therapist. Dr. Simmons is a kind, middle-aged woman with a no-nonsense attitude that I find oddly comforting. Of course, I couldn't tell her the whole truth. I'd have been committed on the spot. Instead, I talked about anxiety, about feeling disconnected from reality. "It sounds like you've experienced some form of dissociation," she said during one of our sessions. "Often, this can be triggered by a traumatic event. Is there anything that happened recently that might have caused this?" I hesitated, then said, Had a bad experience with someone I met online. It didn't turn out to be what I expected. Doctor? Simmons nodded sympathetically. Online interactions can be very deceptive. We project our desires and expectations onto the person on the other side of the screen, and when reality doesn't match up, it can be quite jarring. If only she knew how jarring it really was. The therapy has helped, to an extent. At least I'm sleeping better most nights. But there are still moments when the world doesn't feel quite real, when I find myself questioning everything around me. Last week, I was at a coffee shop, working on some freelance projects. As I was packing up to leave, a woman at the next table struck up a conversation. She was pretty, with warm brown eyes and a friendly smile. We chatted for a bit about the book she was reading, and as I was about to leave, she asked if I'd like to grab dinner sometime. For a moment, I was tempted. She seemed nice, normal, but then I remembered Lily, how she had seemed nice and normal at first too. I politely declined, making up an excuse about being too busy with work. As I walked home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a mistake. Was I going to let one bad experience, admittedly, a supernaturally terrifying bad experience, ruin my chances at happiness forever? When I got home, I stood in front of my closet for a long time, just staring at the door. Finally, with a deep breath, I opened it. Nothing but clothes and shoes greeted me. No writhing shadows, no monstrous hands reaching out to grab me. Just my normal, mundane closet. I let out a shaky laugh, realizing how ridiculous I must look. This is what my life has become, being afraid of my own closet. That night, I had a dream. I was back in that void where Lily had taken me, surrounded by swirling colors and trapped souls. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I walked through the chaos, my steps sure and steady, and as I walked, I saw the bubbles holding the other trapped men begin to pop, freeing them. I woke up feeling different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could move past this. I'm writing this all down now, partly as a form of therapy, and partly as a warning. To anyone out there using dating apps, meeting strangers online, be careful. The person on the other side of the screen might not be who they claim to be. They might not even be human. But I'm also writing this as a reminder to myself. Yes, there are monsters out there. Yes, the world can be a dark and terrifying place. But there's also light and warmth and genuine human connection. And those things are worth fighting for, worth overcoming your fears for. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand what happened to me. I don't know if Lily was some kind of supernatural entity, a glitch in reality, or just a manifestation of my own fears and insecurities. But I do know this: I survived. I faced my darkest fears and came out the other side. And if I can do that, I can do anything. Tomorrow, I think I'll go back to that coffee shop. Maybe that woman will be there again. And this time, if she asks me out, I think I'll say yes. After all, not every match is going to try to drag you into an eldritch nightmare realm. Right. I know I'll be killed today. Well, yeah, this is going to take a lot of explaining. It actually started about a year ago. My ability to see the future. That is, well, that's the best way I can describe it. It's not exactly like that. It's almost like I live some days twice, if that makes sense. I know it doesn't, but stay with me. It was a cool morning on March 3rd, 2023. The first of many days I will end up experiencing for a second time. The mornings are my favorite time of day. So I was glad to don a light jacket and take my dog for her daily walk, breathe in the fresh air and watch the sun edge over the horizon. It was a Friday, the final day of a stressful work week. I work as an actuary for this mediocrely sized tech company, which is great because the pay is all right and the office is only a short bus ride from my apartment. Anyway, not the point. Sorry, I ramble when I'm anxious. The walk was much needed. I felt my jaw unhinge slightly as I breathed and my legs loosen as I walked. My dog, Arla is well trained and typically stays right by my side as we traverse the suburban sidewalks. This Friday morning, for the first time since she was a puppy, something had changed in her calm demeanor. At first, she stayed right with me as she usually does, until she didn't. As I took in a big relieved sigh, I felt a tug on my loosened arm. Arla had stood still, her nose to the air. "What is it, girl?" I asked her. Her ears twitched a bit, and I could tell that her little brain was whirring behind her eyes. Maybe she had caught a particularly strong scent, but she didn't move. "Come on, let's go. I've got to get to work," I said, pulling the leash gently in my direction. It was this sudden movement that sparked a spiral of actions, almost happening in slow motion. I saw a wave of the leash roll from my hand to Arla's collar. I saw the collar pull lightly on top of Arla's now activated muscles as she turned to the side, quickly facing the road. I was still in shock when I felt her leash being ripped from my loose hand, when I saw her run across the asphalt, and when I heard the screeching of the tires and the heavy impact of meat on metal. I think I screamed after this moment. Some of the details of this first day are fuzzy. I know I called my best friend, Casey, to see if he could come and take both of us to a vet hospital. Casey agreed, even though he'd been woken up by my frantic calls. The car ride was sickening. I had wrapped Arla in 2 separate towels, both of which were soaked in blood by the time we arrived. The vet told me what I already knew. She had been dead on impact. I called in sick to work after that, and I left her body with them to be cremated. Casey came back to my apartment on Saturday with me, giving me a cup of warm tea and letting me lean against him while I sobbed. But he had to leave for work eventually, so he gave me a tight hug before closing the door to my apartment behind him. After that, I was alone. I don't think I did anything except scrub my hands with soap to rid them of phantom blood, and lay on the couch quietly for the rest of the day. Sorry, writing this still makes me shudder. I don't know if I want to think too hard about it. Eventually, I tried to sleep. Obviously, it took a while, after the horrors of what I'd seen that morning. But when sleep came, I felt blessed to be taken out of the real world, at least for a little bit. It was when I woke up the next morning to my alarm that I knew something was odd. Not odd in the grieving way, as you may expect, but just familiar. I seemed to be well rested, though I had a slight tension throughout my body. I felt the same as I had the morning prior. As a matter of fact, mentally steeling myself for the last day of the work week. The sun's light had just started to brighten my room. Weirdest of all, though, was that alarm. Even though I'm a morning person, I set my alarm for 5:30 just to make sure that I'm up in time to do everything I want to before I leave for the day. But the soft buzzing from under my pillow is only set to go off on weekdays, so I can rise slowly and naturally on my days off. Wasn't it supposed to be a Saturday? Slightly confused, but not confused enough to worry, I turned off my alarm and Saturday up in bed, stretching my arms. It was at this point that I remembered the events of the day yesterday. My face fell into a frown, and my arms crashed down onto my lap. I missed her. I did, but no tears fell. I just Saturday there, with a vague feeling of sadness for the presence I used to have in my lonely apartment. I looked to my right at Arla's dog bed on the floor. She was a decently sized pit bull, so I didn't allow her to sleep on my already cramped full mattress. To my surprise, my dog was sleeping right there, curled up like she always is. I rubbed my eyes. What? I watched her die! I thought I must have been seeing things, so I reached out and touched her. She cracked open her eyes and glanced at me as I felt her coarse fur under my fingertips. My dog is alive and breathing. I began to think that maybe watching Arla get hit by a car was just a bad dream, so I rose from the bed and got myself ready. I kept my eye on Arla for a while as I made a quick breakfast for myself. I grabbed my phone to check my socials while I ate and noticed something weird. The date displayed on the lock screen was March 3rd. I could have sworn I had already spent March 3rd grieving the loss of my dead dog, but everything was telling me that I had just had a nightmare last night. I clearly hadn't lived a whole day, even though it felt so real. I took a deep breath and decided I was still going to go for my morning walk with Arla. The more I convinced myself that I had just dreamt everything, the more the memories began to lose their weight, until they just drifted around in my mind. Thinking back, I was probably dissociating, so I hooked her up to the leash, grabbed my jacket, and we went out. The morning was cool and brisk, and the sun was just starting to peek over the edge, just like it had the day before, or the day of. I'm not sure how to refer to something like this. Arla walked right next to me, and everything felt normal. Normal. Besides the increasing paranoia I felt as we walked past signs and markings on the road that reminded me of Arla's death. When we arrived at the same street where I'd watched Arla run into oncoming traffic, my grip tightened on the leash. I'm glad it did, because I felt Arla stop walking, just as she'd done the last time we were here. I frowncy and slowly turned so that I faced her. Her nose was to the air, and her ears twitched slightly. I noticed they were edging in the direction of the road, not doomed to repeat my nightmare. I grabbed the leash with my other hand. It was then Arla pulled as hard as she could towards the asphalt, just like she'd done before. In my heightened state, I held on for dear life, planting my feet to the ground. It only took about 10 seconds for her to stop moving. Defeated and panting, she came back to my side, eyeing the road, or something across it. I noticed a dark figure standing completely still on the other sidewalk. It seemed to be human. Well, maybe it wasn't. Its arms and legs were a little longer than I would expect. I couldn't make out any details of its features. It was as if the figure was out of focus and bathed in a non-existent shadow. I only saw so much before a bus passed in front of my gaze. When I was able to see across the road again, the figure was gone, replaced by an extra fat squirrel looking right at Arla, taunting. I blinked. Wow, I was really going crazy. That squirrel must have been the reason for her death the day before. It surprised me still, as Arla was usually a lot more behaved than she was in that moment. I was a bit shaky as we finished our walk home. The image of the car slamming into Arla danced through my mind as I did the New York Times crossword, and then even later when I headed off to work. During my lunch break, I decided to call Casey and ask him if he remembered taking me and Arla to the vet hospital or making me tea back at my apartment. "Hey, Casey," I said into the phone.
Hey, Sam.
"Are you all right?" he said. Yeah, I am. I was just wondering if you remembered me calling you yesterday."
Huh?
I could almost hear his brow furrow through the phone. "What do you mean?" he asked. "You don't remember seeing me yesterday?"
Huh?
"I do not. I saw you last weekend, though. Is this about that?" "Oh, sorry. No, it's not. I might be thinking of someone else. Sorry to bother you. Talk to you later."
Huh?
He chuckled a bit at my stuttering. Yeah, okay. We can chat later. Bye. Bye." I pulled my phone down from my ear, probably more confused at that moment than I had been this whole time. The rest of that day was normal. Surprisingly, I was on edge, but everything just went on as usual. The fact that it was normal was actually the very thing I felt was strange. Waking up the next morning to the sun flooding my room and Arla sleeping in her bed next to me ended this wretched schedule. I quickly checked my phone, and I sighed with relief when I saw the number 4 on my screen. Finally, those 2, or 1, hellish days were over. So that was the first day. I didn't relive a day again until 3 weeks later. I had finally calmed down from the strange experience. The memories faded in my mind. That day, I was getting coffee at a Starbucks sometime in the afternoon when a man in a mask walked through the door. He had a large gun pointed towards the cashiers. He didn't shoot anyone, but stole a good chunk of cash from the register and a poor college student's laptop. He had gone before the police could show up. I was shaken, but I left the building unscathed after the police had asked all of us some questions. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like I knew what I had to do. I got out of bed and checked my phone. Sure enough, the day had repeated itself yet again. It's an odd feeling, repeating the day, almost like déjà vu. But I knew I had to do something about what happened, to change the outcome. Anxiety was high as the time creeped closer to afternoon. My plan was to call the police around the time I had been getting coffee. Maybe I could use this fucked up power for good, I thought to myself. So I did. I told them that there was a man with a gun at the Starbucks coffee closest to my apartment. Once I got off the phone, I took a deep breath. The tragedy didn't happen this time, I was sure it didn't. I changed the future, in a way, for the better. But when I woke up the next morning, the actual next morning, I was shocked to see that the situation had escalated. I saw the news unfold on my phone through a helicopter view. The man with the gun had been boxed in by police, and he had created a hostage situation with the rest of the patrons. The college student whose laptop had been stolen during the first day was instead dead. I could barely eat the oatmeal I had confidently prepared for breakfast. Did I kill him? Bringing my phone closer to my face, I could have sworn I saw a deep shadow standing clearly in the daylight. It was staring right through my screen, but I can't be sure of what I saw. I learned that the choices I made when I was lucky enough to get a second day mattered. I needed to think long and hard about what I would do when the next tragedy came to me. I was granted a second try a couple more times in the last year. Every month or so, something bad would happen for seemingly no reason. My bank account was drained, my mom fell down the stairs and broke her arm, etc., etc. Sometimes my solutions would work, and the day would go much better the second try. Other times, not so much. It's those times that I can't help but feel guilty for making a worse decision when I was lucky enough to get a second chance. Actually, that's kind of why I'm here. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make the better choice. I died yesterday. I woke up early, as I usually do. It was Saturday, a day off from work. I busied myself cleaning my small kitchen with YouTube blaring in the background. Casey had bought 3 tickets to a concert tonight, and one of my favorite up-and-coming local artists was an opener. I enjoy going to concerts when I can, so of course I said yes when he offered me a ticket. Once I finished cleaning the kitchen, I opened my phone again to reread the texts out of excitement. Casey, hey Sam, I got tickets to go see Theoretical Pretender on Saturday. Casey, and Overkill is opening for them. Casey, thought you might enjoy. Me, of course I'll come, that sounds like fun. Me, what time? Casey, I can pick you up at 6:30. Me, that sounds great. I can Venmo you for the tickets on Saturday. Me, is there anyone else going? I was pretty sure that this wasn't a date, because Casey and I are just really good friends. But I wanted to check, just in case. Casey, oh yeah, I got 3 tickets, so one of my friends is coming too. Casey, I don't think you've met him. His name's John. Casey, I think you'll like him though, he's a funny dude. Me, haha, okay, sounds good. Casey had mentioned this friend, John, before. He'd told me a few funny stories of times when they were hanging out, doing stupid stuff. But he was right. I'd never actually met him. I was fine with him bringing a friend to this concert. I actually appreciated the opportunity to grow my tiny social circle. I should have suspected that tonight would be a prime opportunity for a tragedy to occur. It had also been a few weeks since the last one. The time finally came where I saw Casey's grey Kia Soul pull up to the front of my apartment. I didn't even wait for a text saying, "I'm here." I just grabbed my small backpack and left, locking the door behind me. Casey was waiting happily for me in the car. He smiled when he saw me. "Hey," he said, "are you ready?" "Yeah, I think I have everything." I rummaged through my little backpack, feeling for all of my necessities. "Yeah, let's head out." We listened to one of the best Overkill albums on the way, singing along and trying to guess which songs Theoretical Pretender would play as the headliners of this concert. Finally, we arrived at the venue. I had seen the stadium when we were about 8 minutes away. It got me excited for the performance I was going to witness. We found a parking spot, got out of the car, and waited for John just outside the row of doors where we would enter the building. It only took 5 minutes of waiting before Casey saw him. He waved and jumped up and down a little bit. I froze, my smile quickly gone. It was the figure I had seen across the road when Arla died, or almost died. The image of her getting hit by the car played in my mind as John used those uncomfortably long limbs to get closer. Before I knew it, the figure was right next to us. Casey gave it a hug. Its body still seemed out of focus and void-like. The spots where its limbs overlapped with Casey's felt like all the light was being sucked away. Casey turned to me, and the figure did the same. "Sam, this is my friend John. John, this is my friend Sam," he said, gesturing to us both. "Both of you really like overkill, so I kind of figured that you might like to come, and you have something in common to talk about." I stood still, frozen. The figure's featureless face bored into me as if it was staring me down. In a way, it felt like my light was being sucked into its emptiness. I squinted as I tried to focus on the figure's defining edges, but it's almost like it was blurred as much as the background in professional photographs. "Are you okay?" Casey's voice brought me back into the world. He was staring at me nervously and glancing at the outstretched hand that John had extended in my direction. Yeah, I'm okay," I said. I timidly reached out my hand and shook. It was freezing cold, and our touch stung my skin a bit. "It's nice to meet you." The figure didn't respond, but nodded instead. "John doesn't talk much," said Casey. "He's more of a physical comedy kind of guy." Casey grinned at me and led us into the concert. Everything was telling me to run away from this situation, but I couldn't leave Casey alone with this creature. Casey seemed so sure that this figure was a normal man named John. I didn't want to look crazy in front of my best friend by pointing out that it was in fact a manifestation of a deep, endless void, and that the last time I saw him, my dog died. As the music started, I found it hard to enjoy myself. I didn't even have to look around to know where John was, because I could feel his cold presence. He didn't dance or mosh, but just stood, a still presence in the sea of happy people. Nobody seemed to notice him, though. Occasionally, Casey would lean over and tell him something, and he would laugh while the figure remained unmoving. A few times I caught Casey sending a worried glance in my direction. He asked me if I was okay, and I told him I was, just that I was feeling a little sick. He gave a worried sigh and told me to take it easy. I got the impression that he wouldn't take me home if I asked him to. John's presence must have changed him, just like it did for Arla on that very first day. It was about 50 agonizing minutes after the concert had started where things went wrong, as I knew they would. The figure had turned away from the lights and music of the concert and was now staring directly at Casey, who was singing along at the top of his lungs next to me. I froze again. I had been doing a lot of freezing that night. "Are you sure you're okay? You seriously look like you're going to throw up," Casey said as he stopped to look at me. I couldn't take my eyes off of the figure. It began to walk towards us, its empty face pointing right at Casey. I watched as its fingers grew to an unnatural length, and the ends thinned out until they became sharp points. They were almost long enough to drag on the floor. It was going to kill him. Suddenly, I wasn't frozen anymore. I moved forward right as it lifted its knife-like fingers and lunged at Casey, who didn't even have time to flinch. I felt every inch of them enter my chest. I expected the wounds to be hot with blood, but instead they were freezing. Then I felt its fingers rip out of my body. I heard Casey frantically say my name as I fell to the floor. My eyes were open, but everything around me looked hazy and unreal. Nobody seemed to realize that the figure was the one that stabbed me, as they all looked down on me with shock. Through the haze, I saw a flicker of what looked like a concerned, bearded blonde man in place of the empty void. That must have been the John that Casey was seeing. But that image quickly fell back to empty darkness. To be honest, I wouldn't wish death via stabbing on anybody. It didn't feel great to bleed out there on the floor. My chest throbbed deeply as I saw Casey frantically calling 911. Ironically, that's probably what I looked like asking him over the phone to take me and Arla to the vet hospital. I heard Casey's voice sounding far away. "John, check her pulse, quickly!" Then I felt something sharp and cold on my neck and saw the dark, blurred outline of the figure leaning down towards my face. "See you tomorrow," it said in a raspy voice. No, that's not right. It sounded like many voices at once, overlapping and contradicting themselves. They echoed around my skull. And that's when I died. And then I woke up this morning, checked my phone. It's another Saturday. And then I woke up this morning, checked my phone. It's another Saturday. And we've reached the present, which is right now on a Saturday morning at 7:48 a.m. It took me about an hour to get this all down because my hands are shaking so bad. I need to know what to do next. Any advice would be appreciated. I don't want Casey to die. I don't want to die. Please respond as soon as possible if you can. I'll update you on the situation as it happens. Update, 12:25 p.m. Hey everyone. I know I only posted a few hours ago, but the situation has changed and I really need advice. I obsessively looked back at my texts with Casey regarding our concert, and things were, well, they looked a little different. Here's how the conversation went. Casey, "Hey Sam, I got tickets to go see Theoretical Pretender on Saturday." Casey, "And Overkill is opening for them." Casey, "Thought you might enjoy." Me, "Of course I'll come, that sounds like fun." Me, "What time?" Casey, "I can pick you up at 6:30. Me, "That sounds great. I can Venmo you for the tickets on Saturday." Me, "Is there anyone else going?" Casey, "Nope. It's just the two of us." Casey, "I thought we might like a good hangout. We haven't seen each other in a while." Me, "Haha, okay, sounds good." There was no mention of John at all, anywhere. I even scrolled deep into our texts, seeing if I could find any shred of evidence that he had existed in our conversations, but there was nothing. This is freaking me out. It's the first time that a repeat day has been any different, and I'm terrified about what this could mean. I think I'm going to try to stay away from this concert. In that case, I have to contact Casey and get him to stay in my apartment, maybe for the night. I fear he's going to die whether or not this John actually exists. Or maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe the creature is where I am. I'm afraid to look up from my phone screen as I type this. Despite the fact that it's the middle of the day, everything feels slightly darker than usual. I'll probably turn another light on. I don't know. I have a really bad feeling about this. If you're having an inexplicably bad day, I beg you to look around and be careful. Pay attention to your loved ones. There might be a shadow out of place that sucks the life out of everything its blank face can set its sights on. And if any of you have any sort of idea as to what this creature is, or how I can keep myself and my best friend alive, please tell me. Any at all. I'm desperate. And when she came out of the bathroom, her entire class was gone. The third grade class of 77 was never seen again. But they say, sometimes, you can still hear laughter in the woods outside. The door opened, and we all covered our eyes as Reggie grinned in at us. "I knew you guys would be telling stories again. You should have waited." Becky sighed. Randall chuffed unhappily, and I tried to smile as I told Reggie to close the door before someone saw him. We were in the old equipment storage by the playfield, and if an adult saw us, they would make us get out. We like to tell scary stories, and the scarier the locale, the better. The old equipment shed had been unanimously decided upon because it was A, home to a lot of creepy crawlies, and B, didn't let in a lot of light. We had to keep finding new places to tell stories because the ones we had got old pretty quickly. You can only tell stories in a place for so long before it stops being scary. But sometimes it was because the teachers chased us out. The third reason was stepping in right now and grinning like a shot fox at us. Reggie, the weird kid of PS24, had earned his title honestly. It wasn't just because he was overweight to the point of being a blob, and it wasn't just because his hair was always full of thick, gross-looking dandruff. It wasn't just because his dad was the school janitor and seemed to love the job, or because he ate sauerkraut and onion sandwiches for lunch. The reason was that Reggie just emanated an aura of unsettledness. I got the feeling about him that I got about certain adults or dogs, the ones your parents tell you to stay away from. Reggie had a feeling of danger, of not rightness about him, and it made me uneasy. It didn't help that he had adopted us as his best friends this year. Becky, Randall, and I had been friends since kindergarten, but we had managed to avoid getting too close to Reggie. That had lasted until 4th grade when we were in Mr. Novak's class together. Reggie had decided that we were his best friends. He didn't have any regular friends, and he adopted us as his. This led to a year of smelling his sandwiches at lunch, having him follow us on our playground games, and listening to his wheezy, resting breaths as he sat in our pod in class. We had hoped we would be rid of him at the end of the year, but when our parents had signed us up for summer school care, a kind of after-school care during the summer, we had groaned as Reggie came in and saw us. He explained that the school had agreed to let him attend for free if his daddy worked through the summer, and we all prayed that he would be in a different 5th grade class than us when the new year rolled around. Well, since you're already telling stories, I've got a good one, Reggie said. It's the tale of the skinned raccoon. Reggie started to lay out this story about a skinned raccoon that he had seen one evening while his dad worked late, and we all tried to pretend that it wasn't the most gruesome thing we had ever heard. The way he described the raccoon made me think he had not only really seen it, but that he had probably skinned it himself. He said it had left little red footprints on the floor as it walked away, and his father had been angry when he found them. We followed them all the way to the woods, he told us, but we never did find the raccoon. We all made the appropriately scared noises, but I think we were all just hoping he would let us move on. When Mrs. Simon pushed the door open a moment later, telling us this was off limits and we needed to leave, it was almost a relief. We left the shed, trying to kind of lose Reggie as we did, but we knew he'd find us again. It was impossible to hide from Reggie. He knew everywhere and everything about the school and all the hidden little nooks and crannies. His dad had keys to any door in the school, and Reggie often borrowed some of them and got into places he shouldn't. His dad always covered for him, for some reason, so he never got in any real trouble. It's weird. It was like his dad was scared of him sometimes, but he was a grown-up, and there was no reason he should have been afraid of him. As we left the shed, running into the sunshine of a triple-digit day, Reggie said something that caught my interest. That's a shame. I was going to tell you guys about how I saw the missing kids a few nights ago. The missing kids. That was a big topic of discussion these days. Last year, 4 kids had gone missing from PS24. A 1st grader, Mary Edwards, a 3rd grader, George Tate, a kindergartner, Savannah Marcus, and a 5th grader, Robbie Fust. They had come to school and then just never left. The cameras at the school left a lot to be desired. That's what my dad said. And they hadn't seen the kids leave school by any of the other exits either. My dad works for the police department, and he told me I needed to be extra safe until they found whoever was doing this. They suspected a teacher, but the question was, how would they get the kids out? If they were hidden in the school somewhere, then they would have found them by now. They had searched the school a bunch. The disappearance hung around the schools like ghosts, and it sounded like the teachers were afraid that they might lose their jobs if it kept happening. I thought about what he had said until after lunch, and decided I would just have to ask him. We were playing outside, the day a little cooler now that the sun was heading towards down, and Reggie was leaning against the fence and watching people as he often did. Reggie liked to just sit there and look at people, watching them as they went past, but he didn't make up stories about them or anything. He just watched them like the animals in the zoo watched fat children, and it was really weird. So, Reggie, I said, and Becky and Randall looked surprised since we never really talked to him and just accepted when he talked at us. What did you mean that you were going to tell us about the missing kids? Reggie turned his gaze away from a first grader who was chasing a ball with some effort, and his grin was downright predatory. Oh yeah, I saw them the other night when Dad was working late. Like, you saw them, I said. Like you know where they are? Well, yeah, Reggie said. They're under the school. I looked at Becky and Randall, the two of them now as invested as I was. Why haven't you told anyone? Reggie shrugged. No one asked. I could have smacked myself in the forehead. Well, can you take us there? Reggie was already grinning like a creepypasta monster, but I saw a glimmer pass over his eye, and I should have known to take it back. He wanted to show us. He wanted us to come with him, and I suddenly didn't want to go. But it didn't really matter if I did or not. If there was a chance I could help my dad and find those kids, I wanted to. Dad was worried about losing his job too if they didn't find someone, and I didn't want that to happen. Yeah, I'll show you right now. Come on. Reggie looked over at Mrs. Simon and Ms. Gay to make sure they weren't paying attention, and the four of us headed towards the school. Reggie led us into a side door, through the third grade hallway, and to the middle of the school, to an area called the Square. The Square has been a part of PS24 since it was built back in the 70s. It's an area of grass with a couple of small trees growing there. How the roots don't mess up the school, I don't know. But it's a place that lots of kids usually go to between classes. There's a utility building in the middle of it, and that was where Reggie took us. He pulled a long key out of his shorts pocket and unlocked the door, ushering us into the little building before closing us into total darkness. Then he pulled the chain on a light hanging from the ceiling, and we were left looking around a small square room of tools and other implements. There's no one in here, Becky said, looking around before looking back at Reggie with a scared look. Well, yeah, Reggie said, grabbing an edge of what turned out to be a carpet. Otherwise, they would have found them by now. He pulled the carpet back and revealed a hatch in the floor. It was flush against the ground, with no wheel or handle to poke out, and if you didn't know it was there, you would never see it under the rug. Reggie squeezed a pair of handles and pulled the hatch up to reveal a ladder that led down into the earth. Reggie started climbing down like he'd done it 1,000 times before, and when he saw we weren't following him, he asked if we were coming. They're down here. If you want to see them, then you'll have to come down, he said, making his way down again as if the matter was settled. I looked at Randall, but he just shook his head and went for the door. No way, man, this is way too weird for me. He put a hand on the knob, but when he turned it, the door was locked. I went to look for the flip lock that would let us out, but both sides of the knob had a keyhole. I had never seen anything like this, and I realized that Reggie had the only key to the door. We were locked in here with him, for better or worse, and we would need him to let us out too. I looked at the hole and figured it beat being stuck in here. At least we might find another way out if we went down. We descended the ladder slowly, the darkness thick around us. I tried turning the light on my watch on to see a little, but it didn't provide much light. We spread out, trying to find a switch, and when the light suddenly came on, I jumped. We were in a big room, like a storage unit, and it stretched the length of the grass area above us. The ceiling was metal, the walls were metal, the floor was concrete, and the place was full of boxes. They were stacked up to the ceiling in some places, and I wondered what this place had been before it was just used to store things. We grouped up, moving around as we checked the room, and I saw something speckled on the floor. It looked like someone had spilled juice or maybe paint. And as we came around a big stack of boxes, I saw another door. This one wasn't locked, and as it came open, we saw that it led down a long hallway that went further underground. What is this place? Anyway, Becky asked, sounding a little scared as we followed the tunnel. I'm not sure, Randall said, but my mom told me that when she used to go here, back in the early 80s, people used to talk about there being bomb shelters or something under the school. She never saw them, but she said that was something the kids told scary stories about. You think that what these are? I asked, seeing a door coming up on our left. Randall shrugged. Maybe. I guess it would make sense for it to be in the very middle of the school. We tried the door, but it was locked tight. The next 3 were also locked, but the 5th door opened pretty easily and held what we were looking for. Well, not exactly what we were looking for, but we found the missing kids. The room had been some kind of workroom that had been turned into just another storage room. The boxes the kids were lying on were drenched in blood. They were dead. Thankfully, if they hadn't been, they would have been screaming. They were naked, their clothes lying in rags, and someone had been very busy. Their arms and legs had been removed, the bones broken cruelly, their stomachs had been opened, their entrails hanging around them like snakes, and a few of them were missing eyes. The little girl, Mary, I thought, had her jaw pulled off and her tongue was missing. Becky started throwing up. Randall sounded like he wanted to scream, and when someone started laughing, I knew we'd stumbled into a trap. It was Reggie, his bulk blocking the door. He had a knife, the long kind you'd find in a kitchen, and he was grinning like a creep again. He was just standing there, not trying to come after us, and it was clear that he realized, like we did, that we weren't going anywhere. Looks like you found the lost kids. Guess it's time to add 3 more to my little collection. Come on, Reggie, I said, trying to talk our way around him. This isn't funny. You got us pretty good with these Halloween decorations. But enough is enough. You win. Just let us out so we can... When he slashed me across the chest, slicing a long red line that split my t-shirt and the skin beneath, I hissed in pain and stumbled back. There's no getting out now. You're staying here forever. I meant to get you all before school ended, but there was just never a good opportunity. Now, we can be friends forever, all 8 of us. I was scared, but Randall had clearly gone well past scared. He screamed like a cat that's been stepped on and ran at Reggie, shoving him as the bigger boy stabbed him in the shoulder. Even though he'd got him, Reggie was still put off balance. He fell into some boxes and we scattered. Randall had gone back the way he came, Becky running behind him, but I knew there was no way out that way. I went left, running into the unknown, and when someone roared like a wounded beast behind me, I charged heedlessly. I don't know how long I ran. I don't know how far I ran, but when I slammed into a ladder hard enough to make my eyes blur, I shook myself as I tried to climb it. I couldn't let him catch me. If he caught me, I'd be dead. I climbed and climbed and climbed, and when I got to the top, I pushed at the hatch and almost screamed when it wouldn't move. I pushed and pushed, getting a little bit of give, but it always came back down again. I couldn't make it budge, not even a little bit, and as I shoved at it, I started hearing something down the tunnel behind me. It wasn't loud, not like someone running, but it was feet coming up the concrete. I screamed and shoved at the hatch, feeling it give but not open. I squinted as something fell onto my face, dirt or something, and I had to brace my back against the wall so I could use both hands. I got brief flashes of light as I shoved, just the slight glimmer from the edges, and when I heard the laughter from the bottom of the ladder, I kept shoving, praying to God to help me. Found you, Reggie sing-songed, putting his foot on the bottom rung of the ladder. You might as well just come down. That hatch doesn't open. I don't know where it comes out at, but it's not going to help you. He started climbing and I felt like crying as I shoved at the hatch. My arms were hurting almost as badly as my chest, and I was afraid that he would get me before I got the hatch open. He would cut my legs and I would fall down the ladder. Then he could do whatever he wanted, probably drag me back to his little room and finish me off. I shoved and shoved, yelling for help as he got closer and closer. He was climbing slow on purpose, really stretching it out, and his words were muffled by the knife he had clamped in his teeth. Scream all you like, no one is coming to help, but we both squinted when the hatch came slowly open, and I saw the faces of about 7 or 8 kids I recognized from the program. They helped me out, yelling for a teacher as Reggie retreated down the ladder. They had seen him, though they knew he was down there, and as the teachers came running, I was lying on the grass and breathing heavily. I was in a corner of the field, the back corner by the utility shed, and the kids had been playing kickball when they heard a loud shrieking sound from that direction. It was the hinges on the door, long ago grown over with grass and covered with dirt. They came over and saw it opening and closing, and when they heard me yelling, they came to help pull it open. The group of them had managed to fling it open, and as Mrs. Simon came running to see what they were talking about, I breathed a sigh of relief. I told them what had happened, told them how Becky and Randall were still down there, and Mrs. Simmons sent someone to call the police, but wouldn't go down there herself. If what you're saying is true, then it would be dangerous for us to go down there until the police get here. They came pretty quick, my dad with them, and I told them the story again and begged them to save my friends before he hurt them. They went down the ladder, guns drawn and flashlights out, and my dad and another officer told me to take them to the shed we'd gone in through. I took him there, but the door was standing open and I knew Reggie had fled. Dad went down the ladder and, to my relief, came up with Becky and Randall. They were scared but unharmed. They told us how Reggie had come running for the front door and climbed up while they hid behind some boxes. They said he hadn't even noticed them as he ran, and he seemed pretty scared. The police took the bodies out in bags, and the whole place was covered in tape. They got Reggie's dad too, and he told them how he had known there was something off about his son, but hadn't known he was that off. Sometimes I was afraid to sleep with him in the same house. He told them, I know it's not right to be afraid of your kid, but I was really afraid that he would kill me one night. The police decided he hadn't had anything to do with it, though I hear the school fired him for knowingly letting Reggie take his keys to get into restricted areas. As for Reggie, no one knows what happened to him. Wherever he ran to, he was never seen again. Now the ghost stories around school are all about Reggie and how he's just waiting for his next chance to kill more kids. If they'd been down in those tunnels that day, if they had stood face to face with the psycho while he contemplated killing us, they might not be so quick to tell stories about him. Thank you for venturing into the darkness with us. If you dare to explore further, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more spine-tingling tales of horror and the supernatural. Remember, the shadows hold endless mysteries, waiting to be unveiled. Stay tuned for more bone-chilling stories as we continue to traverse the eerie depths of the unknown together. Until next time, may your dreams be free from the haunting echoes of our tales. Or perhaps not.